Some days, your mind just won't leave you alone. You lay down exhausted, your body begging for rest. But your mind? Your mind is wide awake, spinning, listing everything that could go wrong, everything left undone, everything you should be. Overthinking wears you down. But no one really told you that, did they? It even sounds noble to say you think too much, like you're deep, wise, prepared. But the truth? Sometimes it's just mental exhaustion. Because most people who overthink aren't really reflecting. They're protecting themselves from failure, from judgment, from the pain of not being in control of their own lives. Daniel Kahneman, who spent decades studying how we make decisions, explained that our brain works in two modes: a fast one that runs on autopilot and a slow one that analyzes, weighs, calculates. Overthinkers get stuck in that slow mode. Like if they just think through every single detail, maybe they won't mess up, maybe they won't get hurt, maybe they won't fail. But living like that isn't really living. It's trying to control what can't be controlled. Because life isn't solved like a math problem. It's something you move through with doubt, with fear, with mistakes, but also with motion. This video probably won't teach you how to stop thinking, but maybe it'll remind you of something important. Living too much in your head is a quiet way of leaving your body behind, leaving the experience, leaving the now. And maybe that's why you feel so tired, even when you haven't moved at all. There comes a point when you're no longer thinking to understand. You're thinking to avoid feeling. Your mind spins, replays, reanalyzes, rehearses every possible outcome, but nothing changes. Because deep down, you're not looking for an answer. You're looking for a way to avoid what hurts. It's like your mind becomes a hiding place disguised as a workspace. You walk in thinking you'll figure things out, but all you do is isolate yourself. And overthinking is more exhausting than doing, because you're not processing, you're ruminating. You're chewing on thoughts as if they could solve something that really just needs to be felt. You know when you say, "I just need to understand it better"? Sometimes that's true, but sometimes it's just fear stalling for more time. And that has a name. Philosopher Søren Kierkegaard said anxiety is born from freedom, because when anything is possible, everything becomes uncertain. So your mind tries to shrink the world, make it smaller, more predictable, safer, even if that means thinking until you can't anymore. But the world doesn't fit inside your head, and some answers only show up after you move, not before. So maybe overthinking isn't some rare gift. Maybe it's just the quietest way you've found to delay the pain of feeling. And without meaning to, drift further and further away from yourself. Have you noticed how some days overthinking feels like being busy? Your body's still, but your mind is running a marathon. 1,000 thoughts per minute, and none of them take you anywhere. It's like your brain is trying to convince you it's solving something, but really it's just spinning in circles. Thinking becomes automatic, almost addictive, and often that's all it is. Mental noise trying to pass as depth. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman, who studies how the brain responds to stimulation, says that when we're constantly overloaded, our nervous system forgets how to slow down. The body stays on high alert, and so does the mind. It's like leaving all the lights in the house on, even after you've left, because there's a part of you that just can't shut off. But the heaviest part is that this constant state of thinking becomes your normal. You think you're reflecting, planning, staying mindful, but really, you're just exhausted, trying to control everything with your mind, because you no longer know how to trust the present. And so, stillness feels scary. Silence becomes a threat. Sitting quietly feels like you'll miss something important. But sometimes, what you need most isn't a new idea. It's a breath, a moment to step out of your head and return to your body. Because sometimes, stopping the thoughts isn't a distraction. It's survival. There's a trap that catches a lot of overthinkers. The belief that you can only begin something once you're completely certain, when you know the entire path, when you feel fully ready. But that moment doesn't exist. It never has. You delay a conversation, a project, a change, waiting for that magical feeling of total readiness. But what shows up instead is anxiety, a mental list of everything that could go wrong, an invisible pressure to get it right before you've even tried, and so you freeze. But you freeze with a good excuse. It's not the right time. I need to learn more first. I'll start after I understand it better. But there's something psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, once said, with a clarity that's hard to ignore: the meaning of life often appears along the way, not at the start. In other words, you won't understand everything before you act. You'll understand because you acted, but the mind doesn't like that. It wants guarantees. It wants safety. It wants control. And life offers trial, error, movement, and every now and then, some clarity in the middle of the mess. Waiting to be 100% sure is just a polite way to postpone something that's already been calling you for a while. Maybe it's not about being ready. Maybe it's about going anyway. Confused, imperfect, afraid, but fully present. Overthinking can also be a quiet form of self-punishment. You replay everything you said, everything you did, everything you could have done differently. It's like there's a stricter version of you living inside your head, always watching, always judging, always expecting the perfect response, the right behavior, the flawless performance. But living like that wears you down because it demands something impossible: to be flawless, to be immune to mistakes, to criticism, to failure. But no one is. And that perfectionism, which on the outside looks like high standards, on the inside feels like torture. You spend your life trying to avoid judgment, but end up judging yourself every second of the day. And that's where a powerful idea from Carl Rogers comes in. He believed real growth begins when you accept who you already are, not when you try to become someone perfect. Acceptance isn't giving up. It's the starting point. It's the moment you stop fighting an internal war and start, little by little, making peace with what you feel. Because in this mindset, overthinking is also a way to disconnect, to look at yourself like an unfinished project that needs constant fixing. But maybe you don't need fixing. Maybe you just need permission to be real, to be human, to make mistakes, and still deserve to move forward. Thinking matters, but too much thinking becomes a cage. You start collecting thoughts, possibilities, fears, endless analysis, like you're trying to solve a puzzle with pieces that don't fit. And the more you think, the less you live. It's like trying to cut water with a knife. No matter how sharp your reasoning is, some things simply can't be solved with logic. Philosopher Albert Camus once said that to live is to face the absurd with dignity. And sometimes that dignity begins when you stop trying to understand everything and just take the next step, without full certainty, without a perfect plan, without knowing how it'll turn out. Thinking helps, but only up to the point where it starts pulling you away from real experience. So maybe what you're missing right now isn't another thought, it's presence. Breathe. You don't need all the answers. You don't need full control. You just need to be here, fully. If this video brought you any clarity, any space to breathe, share it with someone who also overthinks in silence. And subscribe to the channel. Leave a like. It helps this message reach more people who, like you, are just trying to live a little more truthfully in the middle of the chaos. I'll see you in the next one, or maybe in your next step, whatever it looks like, whenever it comes.